I'm Eva, and I was raised in what you could consider a typical household. However, let me assure you that the events that transpired were far but typical. I was my parents' second violin in their orchestra from the day I was born. Their golden kid, their pride and joy, was my elder brother Tom. They had high hopes for him, believing he would succeed in taking over our family's Chinese porcelain company. Me, I was only present. Tom received all the latest technology, accolades, and attention. Most recent iPhone model, Tom possessed it. The newest video game console, Tom's. Stylish invitation for a party, Tom's. Heading. Me, if I was lucky, I'd have a nighttime babysitter or some of Tom's hand-me-downs. Please understand that I didn't detest Tom or my parents. Simply put, I didn't get them. They constantly tried to pretend to be more important, wealthy, or intelligent than they actually were. With them, it was all about looks. Eva, get to your feet. During family get-togethers, Mom used to hiss. Please remember to smile. What will the public believe? I would fake a grin and bide my time until I could get back to my room. In all of this, Mom's parents, my grandparents, were the only source of happiness. It was like entering another planet when you visited them. They resided in a quaint small cottage across town. I felt liked and seen with them. I felt like I could be who I really was there. Tom's high school graduation was a huge event. My parents proudly announced that Tom would be entering a posh college they had handpicked for him, arranged a magnificent party, and invited all of their key friends. Dad clapped Tom on the back and boasted, "Our boy's going places. He'll bring pride to the family." I remained home with Tom while he attended college. It has been a few years since I looked at colleges and selected a course of study that truly excited me. Telling my folks was all I needed to do. I got up the guts to talk to them over breakfast the following day. I shook my head and continued, "Mom, Dad, I've decided which college I want to attend." They gave me a look as though I had developed two heads. "University?" Dad sneered, "You." Mom chuckled, a false, high-pitched laugh that made my teeth tense. "Oh, Eva, stop being so dumb. You'll work in the shop with us. You don't need to go to college." I said, "But I want to study," but Dad interrupted. He firmly stated, "We're not wasting money on your education. Tom's new car is what that money is going toward." I was stunned into stillness as I stood there. Then Mom struck the last blow. With a condescending smirk, she remarked, "Face it, Eva, without being rude. You simply aren't cut out for college. You'll be in the shop lot happier." It was as though I had taken a hit to the belly. For them, all of my goals and labors were in vain. With tears flowing down my cheeks, I fled the room and did the only thing that came to mind. I called my grandparents. I was crying so much that I was having trouble speaking. I cried over the phone, "Grandma, they said I'm not college material." There was quiet for a while. Then Grandpa's stern and irate voice could be heard over the phone. "Eva, get your luggage packed. We're heading your way." After an hour, my parents unexpectedly rushed into my room as I was packing clothes into a suitcase. "What are you doing, in your opinion?" Mom insisted. With a weak but resolute voice, I said, "I'm leaving." Dad sneered, "Don't act absurd. To where would you go?" It was the doorbell ringing. When I heard Grandpa's loud voice from below, I felt a feeling of comfort. Grandpa and Grandma came at my doorway, and Grandpa said, "She's coming with us." "Now give it a minute." Dad began, but Grandpa interrupted. He snarled, "Eva's 18. She can live wherever she damn well pleases. And she would prefer to live with us at the moment." Mom attempted to refute me, but I had already started lugging my luggage downstairs. I watched my childhood house vanish in the rearview mirror as we drove away. I expected to feel depressed, yet all I felt was liberated. During the homemade supper that evening, my grandparents presented their strategy. "We've been saving for years," Grandma said, reaching for my hand. "We always knew you were destined for great things, Eva. We want to pay for your college." And just like that, my life changed. I enrolled in the college of my dreams, ready to tackle whatever came my way. Every month without fail, a small amount of money would appear in my account for accommodation. The note always said, "We believe in you." I threw myself into my studies with a passion I never knew I had. Late nights in the library, heated debates in class, projects that challenged me in ways I'd never been challenged before. I loved every minute of it. One day, after presenting a particularly difficult project, my professor pulled me aside. "Eva, I'm impressed," she said, a rare smile on her usually stern face. "How would you like to intern at Stellar Corp this summer?" My jaw dropped. Stellar Corp was the most prestigious company in the city. Everyone wanted to work there. "Are you serious?" I stammered. She nodded. "I'm recommending you personally. Don't let me down." I practically floated out of the classroom. Me, Eva, the girl who was not college material, landing an internship at Stellar Corp. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. The future was wide open, and I was ready to grab it with both hands. I was in my third year of college when the unexpected call came. My older brother Tom had already graduated and landed a job. He'd been bragging about some big promotion, and now my parents, who had hardly spoken to me in years, suddenly wanted me to come home to share in Tom's success. I spent the next few days debating whether to go. Part of me wanted to stay away to protect the life I'd built for myself, but another part, well, maybe things had changed. Maybe they finally saw me differently. In the end, I decided to go. What's the worst that could happen, right? I arrived at my old house on Friday evening, feeling like a stranger. As I walked up the familiar driveway, Mom answered the door, all smiles and air kisses. I had just finished unpacking when I heard the front door open and Tom's voice drift up the stairs. "Mom, Dad, we're here." Curious, I headed downstairs. Tom was standing in the living room, his arm around a pretty blonde girl I'd never seen before. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet Sarah," Tom announced, beaming, "my fiancée." Mom let out a squeal that could have shattered glass, while Dad pumped Tom's hand enthusiastically. I stood on the sidelines, feeling like an outsider at a party I hadn't been invited to. "It's nice to meet you," I said to Sarah, who smiled warmly at me. "You must be Eva. Tom's told me so much about you." I doubted that, but I appreciated the effort. As we all sat down, the story came out. Tom and Sarah had been dating all through college, and now that they'd graduated, they decided to tie the knot. "So Sarah," Mom said, leaning forward eagerly, "tell us about your family. What do your parents do?" Sarah smiled. "Oh, they're in business. They own a chain of high-end boutiques across the country." I swear I could see dollar signs light up in my parents' eyes. Dad puffed up like a peacock. "Well, we're thrilled to welcome you to the family," he declared. "Now about the wedding. I think we should spare no expense. In fact, I'd be happy to cover half the cost myself." I nearly choked on my drink. Half the wedding costs. This from the man who wouldn't spend a dime on my college education. "That's very generous," Sarah said, looking a bit uncomfortable. "But really, there's no need." "Nonsense," Dad boomed. "We want this to be the event of the season. Nothing but the best for my son and his bride." I caught Tom's eye across the room. He looked embarrassed, uncomfortable. It was hard to tell. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. As the evening wore on, the wedding plans grew more and more extravagant. A star venue, gourmet catering, designer dresses. My parents were going all out to impress Sarah's family. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of raised voices downstairs. Groaning, I dragged myself out of bed and crept down the stairs, curious about what new drama was unfolding. Tom and Sarah were standing in the living room, a sleek folder in Sarah's hands. My parents sat on the couch, looking confused. "What do you mean, another city?" Dad was saying, his face turning an alarming shade of red. Sarah opened the folder, revealing glossy photos of a stunning beach resort. "We've always dreamed of a destination wedding," she explained, her voice excited. "Look at this place. It's perfect." I watched as my father's eyes bulged at the price list Sarah handed him. This is ridiculous," he spluttered. "It's 3 times what we discussed." "But Dad," Tom argued, "you said you wanted the best. This is the best." Dad stood up, his fists clenched. "I meant the best in our hometown, where our friends can attend. Who's going to travel across the country for your wedding?" "Our friends," Sarah said softly, looking hurt. The argument escalated quickly. Dad insisted on a local wedding, while Tom and Sarah stood their ground on the destination plan. I stood in the corner, feeling like I was watching a tennis match, my head swaggling back and forth between the two sides. Finally, Dad exploded. "Enough. It's either a wedding here, the way I want it, or you're on your own." The room fell silent. Tom's face hardened, a look I'd never seen before. "Fine," he said coldly. "We'll do it on our own." With that, he grabbed Sarah's hand and stormed out, slamming the door behind them. Dad collapsed onto the couch, his face in his hands. Mom fluttered around him, murmuring soothing words. I stood there awkwardly, not sure what to do. I'm going to head back to college," I said quietly. Neither of them responded. I packed my bags and left, grateful to escape the tension-filled house. Back at college, I threw myself into my studies, trying to forget the family drama. Weeks turned into months, and life went on. I was deep into my final project when I got the call that changed everything. "Is this Eva Thompson?" a formal voice asked. "Yes, that's me," I replied, my heart racing. "This is Mr. Johnson from Johnson Associates law firm. I'm afraid I have some bad news. Your grandparents, Robert and Margaret Thompson, were in a car accident 3 days ago. I'm sorry to inform you that they didn't survive." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. My grandparents gone, it couldn't be true. They were the only ones who had ever truly believed in me, supported me. And now Miss Thompson, the lawyer's voice brought me back to reality. "There's something else we need to discuss, your grandparents' will." I listened in a daze as Mr. Johnson explained that I was the sole beneficiary. My grandparents had left me everything. Their cozy house, their savings, everything. I sat on my bed after the call ended, trying to process it all. Grief for my grandparents wed with disbelief over my inheritance. I was now the owner of a house and had a substantial amount of money in the bank. The dust had barely settled on my grandparents' funeral when the vultures started circling. I was still trying to process my grief when Tom showed up at my door, all smiles and fraternal love. "Eva, sis," he exclaimed, pulling me into a hug that felt about as genuine as a $3 bill. "How are you holding up?" I stepped back, eyeing him warily. "I'm managing. What are you doing here, Tom?" He sauntered into my apartment like he owned the place, making himself comfortable on my couch. "Well, I heard about Grandma and Grandpa's will. That's quite a windfall you got there, huh?" And there it was. I crossed my arms, already knowing where this was heading. "Look, Eva, Tom said, his voice taking on that wheedling tone I knew all too well. Sarah and I are still trying to put together our dream wedding. And now that you've come into some money. I cut him off. No, Tom, I'm not paying for your wedding. His face fell, then hardened. Come on, Eva. Don't be selfish. It's not like you earned that money. We all know you were just sucking up to them to get their money. The accusation hit me like a slap in the face. How dare you? I hissed. I loved them. They were the only ones who ever believed in me. Yeah, because you played them like a fiddle. Tom was on his feet now, shouting, Poor little Eva, so neglected. Give me a break. At least I'm not a spoiled brat who thinks the world owes him a fancy wedding. I shot back. We went back and forth, hurling accusations and old grievances at each other. Years of resentment and hurt came pouring out. By the time Tom stormed out, slamming the door behind him, I was shaking with anger and hurt. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. A few days later, my phone exploded with messages from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Apparently, my parents had been busy. How could you be so selfish, Eva? Your poor brother just wants a nice wedding. I always knew you were trouble. The messages went on and on. I called my parents, demanding an explanation. Well, what did you expect? Mom sniffed. Refusing to help your own brother, it's shameful. You didn't want to pay for his ridiculous wedding either, I reminded her. That's different, Dad chimed in. We're his parents. You're just being greedy with your inheritance. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Greedy? I worked my ass off in college while you two showered Tom with everything he wanted. Watch your language, young lady, Mom scolded. This is exactly why we always preferred Tom. He knows how to behave in polite society. Over the next few weeks, the family divide grew wider. Invitations to family events stopped coming. My cousins unfriended me on social media. It was like I'd been erased from the family tree overnight. At first, it hurt a lot, but as the days went by, I started to feel relieved. No more pretending, no more walking on eggshells, no more feeling like the family disappointment. I threw myself into my studies with renewed vigor. I had 1 semester left, and I was determined to graduate with honors. My grandparents had believed in me and had given me this amazing gift. I wasn't about to let them down. The day I graduated from college should have been one of the happiest of my life. Instead, I felt empty. There was no one in the audience cheering for me, no proud parents taking photos, no celebratory dinner afterwards. I collected my diploma and went home alone. The next few weeks were a blur of job applications and interviews. I was determined to make something of myself, to prove to everyone, especially myself, that I was worth something. Then out of the blue, my phone buzzed with a message from Tom. I nearly dropped it in shock. Hey Eva, I know we haven't talked in a while, but I'm getting married next month. It would mean a lot if you could come. Call me. I stared at the message for a long time before finally hitting the call button. Eva, Tom's voice was hesitant. Thanks for calling. Look, I messed up. I've been thinking a lot about how I treated you, how we all treated you. I was a spoiled brat, and I'm sorry. I was stunned into silence. You're my sister, Eva, he continued. You and our whole family. You're important to me. I want everyone there for my big day. Please say you'll come. I felt a lump in my throat. I'll think about it, I managed to say before hanging up. The day of the wedding arrived, and I found myself standing outside an elegant hotel, clutching an expensive gift, and feeling like I was about to walk into the lion's den. The venue was stunning. Flowers everywhere, crystal chandeliers, a string quartet playing softly in the corner. For a moment, I felt underdressed in my simple cocktail dress. I spotted Tom across the room, looking dashing in his tuxedo. Taking a deep breath, I made my way over to him. "Congratulations," I said, forcing a smile. Tom's face lit up. "Eva, you came." He pulled me into a hug, and for a moment, I let myself believe that everything might be okay. We chatted for a few minutes, and I started to relax. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad after all. Then I saw them, Mom and Dad, making their grand entrance. Mom was dripping in jewelry, Dad in a tux that looked like it cost more than my monthly rent. They swept into the room like royalty, greeting guests with air kisses and condescending smiles. "Oh, darling, my son's wedding is just divine," I overheard Mom saying to another guest. Of course, we spared no expense. Only the best for our Tom. I had to stifle a laugh. Same old Mom and Dad, always putting on a show. As the evening wore on, I did my best to avoid them, sticking to the edges of the room, and making small talk with distant relatives who didn't seem to remember our falling out. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The way Mom kept glancing at me, the hushed conversations that stopped when I walked by. It was like waiting for the other shoe to drop. The evening was in full swing when Dad clinked his glass, calling for everyone's attention. "It's time for the family toast," he announced, beaming with pride. My stomach dropped. I hadn't prepared anything, but before I could protest, Mom was dragging me towards the stage. I stumbled after my parents, feeling like a lamb being led to slaughter. Dad started the speech, his voice thick with emotion. "Tom, Sarah, we couldn't be prouder. Your love is an inspiration to us all." Mom chimed in, "We've always been a close-knit family, supporting each other through thick and thin." I stood there, trying to keep a neutral expression, wondering what alternate reality they were living in. Then Dad dropped the bomb. "In fact, we love Tom so much that we took out a substantial loan to pay for this beautiful wedding." Wait, what? I thought. They'd refused to pay for the destination wedding, but Dad wasn't finished. "Of course, we won't be paying back that loan ourselves. No, our wonderful daughter Eva has generously offered to cover it." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I felt all the blood drain from my face as every eye in the room turned to me. What? I stammered, my voice echoing through the microphone. There must be some mistake. I never agreed to that. Mom's hand clamped down on my arm, her fingernails digging into my skin. "Smile and agree, dear," she hissed through clenched teeth. But I was done playing along. I wrenched my arm free and stepped up to the microphone. "I'm sorry, but this is the first time I'm hearing about any loan. I never agreed to pay for Tom's wedding." The room erupted into shocked whispers. I saw Tom and Sarah exchanging panicked glances. "Eva, darling," Mom said, her voice sickly sweet as she tried to salvage the situation. "Don't be modest. We all know how generous you are with your inheritance." That was the last straw. Generous. You mean the inheritance you all tried to guilt me out of? The one you said I didn't deserve. Dad tried to grab the microphone, but I held on tight. "I'm sorry, but I won't be paying for this wedding. I wasn't even consulted about it." "You ungrateful little bastard." Dad snarled, forgetting the microphone was still on. His words echoed through the ballroom, causing several guests to gasp. Mom's carefully cultivated mask of politeness crumpled. "We should have thrown you out on the street years ago. You're worthless, you hear me? Worthless." I stood there, shock and hurt warring inside me. Then a calm settled over me. Without another word, I handed the microphone to the wide-eyed DJ and walked off the stage. As I made my way through the stunned crowd, I heard my parents' voices behind me, alternating between apologies to the guests and more insults hurled at my back. I made it to my car before the tears started. As I drove home, my phone exploded with messages, some supportive, most accusatory. I blocked them all. At home, I double-locked the door and sank to the floor, my mind reeling. Had this all been a setup? Had Tom's apology just been a ploy to get me to pay for his wedding? I felt sick, betrayed, and angry. But underneath it all, there was a small spark of relief. The mask had finally come off. There was no more pretending, no more hoping for a family that clearly didn't want me. I woke up the next morning feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My eyes were puffy from crying, and my head pounded with the mother of all headaches. I was contemplating spending the entire day in bed when there was a knock at the door. Peering through the peephole, I was shocked to see Tom standing there, looking as rough as I felt. "Eva, please," he called through the door. "I've been trying to reach you all night. Can we talk?" Part of me wanted to tell him to go to hell, but curiosity won out. I opened the door a crack, eyeing him wearily. "What do you want, Tom?" He held up his hands in surrender, to apologize and explain. "Please, can I come in?" Against my better judgment, I let him in. We sat at my small kitchen table, 2 cups of coffee between us like a peace offering. "I swear to you, Eva, I had no idea about Mom and Dad's plan," Tom began, his voice thick with emotion. "When you stormed out, I confronted them. It was ugly." I snorted. "Yeah, I get." "No, you don't understand," Tom insisted. "Sarah and I, we never asked them for money. We were paying for the wedding ourselves. This whole loan thing, it was all their idea. They wanted to look good in front of Sarah's family." I felt a weight lift off my chest. "So you didn't set you up?" "God, no. Eva, I meant what I said before the wedding. I want to make things right between us." I noticed a side of Tom that I had never seen before as he spoke. He told me about how Sarah had made him see how dysfunctional our family was and how her parents loved and respected their kids instead of using them as props in a game of social climbing. Tom grinned sardonically and had remarked, "You'd never know Sarah's parents are loaded. They are the most genuine individuals I have ever encountered." Upon learning of what had transpired, they volunteered to settle Mom and Dad's debt. "How come?" "They are not able to accomplish it." I objected. Tom extended his hand. "Don't worry, I will reimburse them in full." However, they wanted to take care of us in this way so that we could move on from Mom and Dad's turmoil. Tears were starting to form in my eyes, but they weren't angry or frustrated ones for once. "So what happens next?" I inquired. Tom grabbed my hand by reaching across the table. "We are now beginning over as a true family. Eva, I want you in our life, and so does Sarah. Nothing ties you down." We engaged in meaningful conversation for hours on end, something we thought we had never done before. I had the impression that I had my brother back by the time Tom departed. The following several months flew by. After getting hired by a marketing company, I threw myself into my profession with a passion I had never idea I had. Tom and Sarah started to visit me frequently for movie evenings or supper. Tom and Sarah arrived at my house one lovely afternoon, grinning alike. Sarah said, literally jumping with excitement, "We have news. You're about to become an aunt." With a shriek, I gathered them both into an embrace. I was amazed at how much had changed even as we rejoiced. When our parents learned about the baby, they made an effort to re-enter our life, but Tom and I refused to give in. Their dramatization and manipulation were over for us. Cutting them out wasn't easy, but at least we now had each other. The family you select might sometimes be stronger than the family you are born into.